It's written that it's live.
Okay. Let me see if everything is okay. I have the confirmation that we are online. Just to make sure that the video is running, I will check the social media platforms. Let me see on COL. Okay, on COL we are live. Great. So I think that we can easily start. And I have to change device. Ooh, my camera is not showing so well. Then I will be the shadow master. Okay. Great. Now we are live.
Great.
So hello, dear guests. Thank you for joining our event. My name is Julian. I'm head of communication for Central and Eastern European Online Library. COL, the memory of post-communist Europe. You can find on COL 2,500 journals and more than 5,000 ebooks from and about Central, Eastern, and Southeastern Europe. To move forward with representing and supporting the region, COL created COL Press. So today I'm here with Krisztina 𝐶, Managing Director of COL Press, Adla Isanović, the author of the recently published title, The Regime of Digital Coloniality, Bosnian Forensic Contemporaneity, and our special guest, Marina Gržinić, professor at the Institute of Philosophy at the Scientific and Research Center of the Slovenian Academy of Science and Arts. So without keeping you waiting, I will pass the microphone, the floor to Krisztina 𝐶, Managing Director of COL Press.
Thank you so much, Julian. And I would also like to welcome all our guests, both in the studio and the audience as well. As Julian said, I'm Krisztina 𝐶. I'm the director of COL Press. And before we start our special presentation, I would like to just say a few words about COL Press. We established our publishing house in early 2020 with the idea to bring historical, political, cultural, ideological issues of our region close to any interested, specialized or non-specialized reader. In the almost 2 years that we've been in existence, we published 4 original books so far, and we also have a different stream of publishing out of print titles in digital publications. So the 4 new books that we published, the latest one of those is Adla Isanović's The Regime of Digital Coloniality, Bosnian Forensic Contemporaneity. And I would like to introduce our speakers today before I'm going to give the floor to them. So Adla Isanović is Associate Professor at the Academy of Fine Arts of the University of Sarajevo, where she teaches multimedia. She holds a PhD in philosophy from the Postgraduate School of the Scientific and Research Center of the Slovenian Academy of Science and Arts. She completed her doctoral thesis on the theme of databases and art in the function of knowledge production in the digital age. Her previous engagements include work as a researcher at Media Center Sarajevo, as well as being a visiting lecturer at the International University Sarajevo, the Academy of Performing Arts Sarajevo, the School of Arts of the University of Nova Gorica, and Grace School of Art of the Robert Gordon University, Aberdeen. Our special guest, Professor Marina Gržinić, is professor at the Academy of Fine Arts, Vienna, researcher at the Institute of Philosophy at the Scientific and Research Center of the Slovenian Academy of Science and Arts, artist and theoretician. She also works as a freelance media theorist, art critic, and curator. And now I would like to give the floor to Marina. We can't hear you. Turn on your mic.
Yes. Thank you very much for this introduction. Thank you, Krista. Thank you, Julian, before, and also for giving us the context. Welcome, Adla. I am very delighted to be here today and to actually be in charge of some guidings through the presentation. It's always a moment of festivity when such a book with a so precise political and theoretical perspective is in front of us. We know that still it's possible to put the things into view for another future. This is how I see this fantastic book, Adla, that is really great that was possible to publish. So now the idea of this presentation is I give some brief introduction, some points that I would like to mention, and then I will ask you some questions to which we hope for your answers. They are maybe complex, but to get an idea of your work, of your process of research, and also maybe about the futures that is brought with this book. So why it's or how to think about the extraordinary relevance of the book by Dr. Adla Isanović. I think it's captured perfectly under the following frame: digital technologies, forensics, and human rights law. And also, if I start just in the media res, I start to talk about the book, I say excavated mass graves of Bosnians are now places open to forensics to speed up the processes of remembering past horrors of Srebrenica and other genocides on Bosnia and Herzegovina territory. It is a delayed justice for what happened in Srebrenica in 1995, but maybe this could be with this coming to an end. I say maybe, because in the same moment today, we have actually these turbo-fascist processes in Bosnia and Herzegovina, the self-proclaimed Republika Srpska, Dodik and his companions trying to put a secession war inside Bosnia and Herzegovina and prolonging the genocidal politics. So these two things come together, and the book is actually one of the most important points to understand what was before, what is now, and what we can expect for the future. Forensic evidence is an integral part of present and future international criminal trials. Adla Isanović hits the nail on the head when she says that when we talk about Bosnia, it is to talk about Bosnian forensic realities. In this book, Adla addresses the changes and reflections of the digital onto life in general. Practically, she has two steps. The first one is to recuperate memory inside the transformation brought from biopolitics to necropolitics. And here is this biopolitics by Michel Foucault, not to go many in depth, because this is in the book really in depth presented, but in like summary, what is possible to say, Foucault in the 1770s think about that the state, the sovereignty is actually using the right to kill, but even more try to control life. So these are the 70s. Then in 2003, Membe is coming, Achille Membe, and in his pioneering text, Necropolitics, he said, no, this is not enough. We need something else. And actually, Membe argues that sovereignty today is exercised to the right to kill, what we could see already in Bosnia and Herzegovina. We can see from that moment on just sweeping the world in totality, and also that war is taking a central part. This makes a big change, this necropolitics, in all what we thought before about life, what we can think about the future. Practically, he says, and we can ask with him, what place is given to life, to death, and the human body, in particularly to the wounded or slain body. And this is one of the points of the book. The second point, so this is the first, this shift, biopolitics, necropolitics, and memory. And the second one, it's actually the relations between the archive and the database. So Isanović take us directly to the phenomenon of this passage. And again, forensics is a new sovereign politics, and DNA identification is the final truth that the dead are part of specific communities. So this is very, very roughly some ideas about this fantastic book coming from my introduction. And now I would like to really give the floor to Adla, because these talks about Srebrenica, the narratives and stories, they are so deep. They are all the time coming back, and we have to think, and you did this through connecting forensics with particular regimes of coloniality, and also with what came out, digital coloniality, a new term that you coined, and it's coming out from this process. So first question, simple but actually very complex. Personally, theoretically, practically, how actually you managed to come to this point?
First of all, I want to say that I'm very grateful for the opportunity to present the book. And thank you, Julian, Krisztina, and Marina, especially for this introduction. To answer your question, initially, my interest in digital archives came through my art practices, and it was actually years before I started work on this book. And at that time, database was becoming one of the dominant means of knowledge production, methods of cultural expression, and being celebrated as objective, democratizing, emancipatory even. And although these database logics and aesthetics appear to be something that imposes a norm, actually they were imposed as a norm. And that is evident not only in art practices, in contemporary exhibition models, but primarily in media, in state governing, in policy making, in juridical processes, all these military interventions, science, and all aspects of life as we see today. And also I was aware that such potentiality of the digital in knowledge production and visibility is not equally distributed, although it was proclaimed as such, and that geopolitics of the archive still matter, as no technology is given, and as digital technologies are defining conditions of neoliberal globalizations of our position and possibilities within it. I thought it is necessary to problematize how databases are conceived, what is their relation to knowledge production with these current settings and realities in relation to global phenomenon, our social, political, cultural realities, regimes, and also power differences. But during my initial research, I also noticed that simultaneously to database turn, on global level, we also recognize the forensic shift or the prevailing forensic methodology and aesthetics that's conducted through different forums, as for example, that of international humanitarian politics, law, but also art. And these changes in practices, in forms of knowledge production and visibility related to both digital regime and forensic turn were closely related to Bosnian forensic contemporaneity, which was additional motivation for this research. But I have to remind here that the context in which new technologies were developing in the 90s is different not only between so-called East and West, but also within the East itself, as the collapse of socialism and integration into capitalism in this society took different paths. Bosnia and Herzegovina at that time was a war zone. And just like you, Professor Marina Gržinić, in her book In a Line for Virtual Bread in 90s, have recognized and precisely pointed, I'll try to paraphrase you here. At the end of 20th century, we indeed had digital traces, but we didn't have food, in your words. While the world was talking about the promises of virtual bodies floating around, we simultaneously literally had material bodies coping to survive war crimes, mass killing, hiding of dead bodies throughout the region. And I want to make here one additional reference. In the summer of 95, two Canadian media theorists, Arthur and Mary Louise Crocker, published one text on two events that took place on the same weekend in July that year. And these were the shipping of Windows 95 in Washington and the fall of Srebrenica as protected UN zone in Bosnia. As Crocker's recognized in critically analyzing this technological acceleration hype in the West that occurred simultaneously to genocide in Bosnia, the effect of that hype has been, in their words, the bitter division of the world and of the human flesh into what they call privileged virtual flesh and surplus flesh. More precisely, the result of this division was total indifference regarding different forms of violence to which this surplus flesh or real life was exposed. And that was registered by all these new brand new technological devices. So in short, I was aware that our reality is both that of hyper-digitalization and of the deadscape, to use Mendes' term. More precisely, what we have as a product is the product of this necropolitical reality is Bosnian forensic contemporaneity. As forensic method, mass graves made forensic method central to post-war Bosnia, to its democracy, justice, but also memory. In that way, they entered the political space. They allowed, as you write in actually no introduction to bones, to have proper name and proper voice. It is also seen as a methodology to allow the community to bury those who were executed and dispersed through various mass graves, but also, and what is important for me, crucial for the status of knowledge and for the visibility and potentiality. And since I believe that we need to acknowledge the existence of real archives, because they function as very material link between knowledge and power, in this book I address two actual examples. And one is several examples, but maybe they are more in focus. The first is related to the survival or forensic practice of the International Criminal Tribunal for the former Yugoslavia, established in 1993 by the UN in Hague. Or more precisely, to partial archival destruction, and the fact that during 2005 and 2006, the prosecution staff systematically destroyed about 1,000 items found in mass graves in Srebrenica that were kept in that archive without consulting or informing family members or Bosnian government, explaining that they no longer needed them, and offering after that to the local community access to digital replica as a solution. For me, that example was important as it raised many important questions regarding relations of archive knowledge, authority, power, subject, property, rights, and everything else. And the second example that I address is reappearance of such archives and forensic aesthetics in the context of contemporary art. Both these examples are directly related to the intervention in the field of the visible, what is speakable, what is thinkable, what is possible, and to the politics of visibility. So to conclude, I noticed that on the global level, simultaneously to database turn, in the aftermath of this extreme violence, we have related forensic shift, forensic contemporaneity, to which Bosnian forensic reality contributed significantly in the last 20 years. And that was also one of the motivation, as you asked, to do research in this way to get to this point.
Super. Actually, you open a whole Pandora box of other things to think. But maybe if we go back to this biopolitical, necropolitical, and we try to think the status of life that you mentioned already, hyper technology and almost the problem what to put in your mouth, how to survive, what to eat, and death. That it's more than just dying. Everybody will die, but the consequences, the ways they change dramatically with necropolitics. So how you think this relation between or connection between death and life, or life and death, change in view of digital coloniality?
In a book, as you know, as you read it, I address changes of the digital on life and on human body in general. But the major point that I bring with the book, that the database as major neoliberal governmental technologies emerge, coexist, embodies changing relations within governmentality. So I relate database knowledge production of our age to biopolitics and necropolitics, to propose that if the archive is a biopolitical instrument with a crucial role in governing, then database should be conceptualized in relation to the shiftings between bio and necropolitics, bio and necropower. You already explained in the introduction, bio standing for life, control over life, management of life, while necro for management of that right, to expose other people, including citizens, to that right, to impose social, civil debt, to expose them other form of political violence. And you already gave some definitions of these terms, so I'll not go in detail, although the work of Foucault on the notion of biopolitics and governmentality was a starting point for thinking digital archives. During my research, I realized it's not enough to explain our reality, including Bosnian forensic reality, so I found the definition of necropolitics by members crucial. But I owe gratitude to Professor Gržinić, as I was introduced to necropolitics actually through her extremely rich, huge work on these shiftings from biopolitics to necropolitics, on racialization, coloniality, global local movements, reality, especially what is called the former Eastern Europe, which is extremely important to understand these connections today. In short, in understanding these relations between life and death politics and how the regime of digital relate to it, I argue that it's necessary to address its relationship to governmentality, but also to expand visions of governmentality beyond the West, both in relation to past and present. And this primarily means including the coloniality of power and coloniality of knowledge, not only as an issue of past, but also as some active element in the present. And here the term coloniality describes actually the living legacy of colonialism that has survived formal colonialism and became integrated in succeeding political and social orders. Today, the coloniality of power is digital. This is what I'm writing about in a book. And these technologies have a crucial role in it. Digital technologies, digital mode of production, databases, they're facilitating control of human beings, from the human body becoming an archive, biometric data on refugees, migrants, all of us, forensic archives, financial data, data mining. Digital technology is now the major tool for control of human bodies and subjectivity. We live in a sort of state of exception, and control is implemented through these technologies. These technologies are also presented as ethically correct, since they're used to calculate, to predict what would be what A.L. Weizmann called the lesser evil that we might accept or we might approve in order to prevent a greater harm, which is actually an argument used to defend all kinds of legal exceptions, from managing war to financial speculations and other. So to conclude, Today, concrete political decisions are determined by the knowledge that's obtained from databases, even executed by some semi-autonomous decision-making technologies. And as the same author Weimann also noticed, calculation as a technique of government is undertaken by the powerful, and on behalf of those it subjugates. Actually, the power is based on the very ability to calculate and to act on these calculations. And I'll finish with this, hoping that gave some ideas about how do I make these connections between digital coloniality and management of death and life.
Actually, you were again, I mean, what I want to say recently, even in the Academy of Fine Arts in Vienna, when we were talking about art, it was a very interesting, let's say, proposal. And it's true that in the end, no art will matter, no medium will matter, but only what we will have will be data. And you touch this through this point of actually showing that our lives will also stay in data, and also the manipulation of the data. So present and history, what is the future? And I ask about this, it's a big topic. Always is said, possible future scenarios. What is to be expected? But if we go from your masterpiece, it's really a masterpiece. This book is unbelievable because it's precisely because it's speaking about a space that is lost. It's nobody talks about Bosnia, only when something is going on. And you actually also we see these vicious double standards that are all the time part of the how geopolitics is taken, like about Bosnia. Then we see the growing anti-Muslim racism everywhere in Europe, and also connected with the refugees. And then you have what you once exposed in a brilliant way, and I hope you can talk a little bit about this, when you say, oh my God, they call Sarajevo the heart of Europe. Because it was this commemoration. And then you said something else. You give us a twist that was again an invention. You said, yes, it's a heart of Europe, Sarajevo. No? The genocides that are we don't think about them. But what kind of heart is Sarajevo for Europe?
Thank you for the question. With the question, you returned me to one of my earlier essays that I titled Sarajevo, a Rotten Heart of Europe, in which I reflected on these, as you say, double standard or perspectives on it. In that text, I was illustrating those contradictions in the events that were organized to mark the 100 years of the start of the First World War in Sarajevo. And with those examples on the politics, the cultures of remembrance, but also ignorance, I showed how culture is the center of identity, politics, and struggles. I actually analyzed Sarajevo 2014 and its politics of visibility, both in relation to local context and EU politics. Text is available online. I'll not go in detail, but to explain in short, it was about why and how some EU countries decided to carry out a kind of central manifestation to mark the century exactly in Sarajevo, the capital of what is perceived as a failed state, center of the wild Balkans. Even more, decided to do it under a slogan Sarajevo, heart of Europe. Central event was organized in restored city hall, symbol of Austrian-Hungarian imperial rule in Bosnia, with Vienna Philharmonic Orchestra, international elite. It was targeted to EU audience through live broadcast as well. But although the event was actually confusing, it was not clear if we are celebrating or if we are mourning something. What was clear is that stage was set to celebrate cultural, civilizational superiority of what is to be believed to be distinctive European values. And under such narrative, there was also a promise that one day maybe this country would join EU, would be recognized as part of the club But as we see in the meantime, this is not easily going to happen. In 2014, Sarajevo was proclaimed Heart of Europe, although it was refused to be proclaimed the European capital of culture. And this metaphor
it's really, just to enter, it's a really Bosnian forensic contemporaneity. It was already pre-announced, as you said. We could think in 2014 what actually will come. No, there was also bones excavated, and then they were actually presented as something else. And this was my also idea. This much bigger points that you bring with your book.
Yes, because sending messages that the worst is behind us, messages of love, of peace, solidarity from Sarajevo. What was silenced was also the fact that already at that time, beyond Bosnia, Europe was in crisis, as you said at the beginning, threatened by growing nationalism, racism, not only in this region, but throughout Europe. That time, that was especially evident toward migrants, refugees, but toward the other to be excluded, actually, since it's presented as a threat. So these spectacles were there to obscure not only these local disputes and the European silence about European science and dispute about past, but to evacuate misery, the misery of the present. They pointed also to our inability to critically reevaluate the past or present at that time in order to learn any lessons about and for the future about it. It was about tactics of erasure, of dehistorization that was at the core of governmentality in both local Bosnian context and across Europe. So where did this bring us to answer your question? What do we have today? Where it might take us? Recently, just to remind that recently Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orban, in terms of EU enlargement, proclaimed that the challenge with Bosnia is how to integrate a country with 2 million Muslims. And Orban is not alone in such acts. Slovenian Janša also was criticized for xenophobic statements and work, as well as other right-wing politicians from various EU countries. So such growing racist actions, statements in EU are today tolerated. They are not condemned. And such way they are in a way normalized. And that's the problem today, not only for Bosnia, but for Europe in general. Bosnia, as you said in the beginning, at the introduction to question, heart of Europe, is these days again in crisis. But in these pandemic times, it does not seem that Europe is really worried about it. Crisis is intensified with some Bosnian Serb leaders that are on the secessionist warpath. And I'm thinking here not only on continuous negation of genocide, historical revisionism, rehabilitation of fascistic ideologies, erasure of history, but additionally of a new threat of extreme violence and repeating of this deadly history. And although it might have been proclaimed that the world has learned much from Bosnian forensic reality, having in mind these current happenings, lack of reaction of international community, the fact that it seems that there are no many who are really willing to listen, neither dead nor alive ones, this repeating scenario of pure abandonment in the future seemed to be possible again, unfortunately. Although so many times we heard never again, we keep hearing that. However, I would not like to finish this in kind of a desperate tone, because I believe that this situation should not demotivate us in our activities to think on imagining, trying to achieve different scenarios, no matter how hard they seem to be, how hard to be imagined or achieved. No matter if these struggles are coming from politics, from activism, from education, artistic actions, critical theory, or other strategies, or all of them together, because if not, what else is left?
Yes, you are right. And on the other side, I must say, if I make a conclusion, maybe with be some questions or some comments, but this today I see it's really a festivity. We just celebrate the book is out. And this is important. And we listen to your stream of thoughts, and I think it will be many other situations to go really in deep what is. But if I can come to a certain conclusion, I actually understood that when we were preparing and you were preparing the book, we didn't think about the pandemic. Now the pandemic came, and this pandemic actually used very similar elements as in forensic, because you have this DNA methods that are used, and also all is connected with biotechnology, testing, embracing genetics, and so we come directly from what you are discussing so deeply into what we have today, the reality of genetic testing, genetically engineered vaccines, the pandemic, the questions that are open that nobody knows how this will actually finish and what will be the conclusion. Maybe I will say just last more in a more depressive way. Forensic methodologies reconstruct communities. We see very clearly. We saw this also in Rwanda. We saw in other places of genocide. We saw in relations to the Holocaust. The process was going on with the similar methodologies, but it was connected with technologies that we had at that time. And practically, it's a specific, tremendous moment, both to utter a proper name. This is how this whole idea is functioning of forensics, excavation, digitalization. And this day speak to us, but also speak the reality that you presented to us in the book. But we always have to say not anymore if this is maybe not listened to, but are we capable to understand what the bones are actually telling to us, what they say to us, in order to understand actually the society, life, death, our dignity, our possibility for a future. This is also what I could see the most central point of your book. When you finish to read your fantastic book, you start to think about really what is the future. And we can see this from that space that is left. Nobody talk about Bosnia only when something tremendous is going on. Less is talking about, or the problem is only how to integrate, as you said very precisely, the Muslims community in Europe, as there will be a poison or an evil, while the evil is actually the European community in itself, and those who are on power and started already with colonialism, their adventures, that means the Occident, and now these former Eastern European countries that are as vulgar, as turbo and fascist as those that they cherish so much, this Western part of the world. So I will say thank you so much, Adla, for this view. And let's see.
Thank you very much for this presentation, for these questions, discussions that are always with you so enriching for me.
Thank you.
Okay, it was really great to hear you discussing the book. I was all over the streamings on our social media channels, on YouTube, on Twitter, and I wanted to see if there are any comments to our video. Until now, there is no comment. We have one heart, we have one like, here there. So people
People can still put their comments if they want.
Yes,
this would be the time.
If there are any questions, you can add the question in the comment. Doesn't matter if you are on YouTube, if you are on Facebook, Twitter, or LinkedIn. We are still here a little bit. I shared with you during your conversation the page where you can find the book. You can find the book on CEEOL Press. You can find the book in the form of an ebook, so you can download it if you go on CEEOL Press, or if you go on CEEOL, you can find the book in electronic format. If you want the print version, also from CEEOL Press, you have a direct link to Amazon. You can find the book there. I've noticed that it is an ongoing promotion there on Amazon, so they go crazy with creating plans for the book. So that is really, really great. Krista, do you have something else to add? Questions?
I just want to thank you for this fantastic, thought-provoking conversation. I really, really enjoyed it. I hope our audience has also enjoyed it. And if they don't have questions now, maybe later when they read the book, they will get in conversation with the book themselves and continue there. So thank you again for coming and being with us. It's been a real pleasure for me.
Thank you very much.
Also,
thank you, Marina.
Yeah,
thank you.
Close to finishing, can I just add something? If you give me the word, I want to say that first, thank you for giving the opportunity to present the book in such a way today. I'm very glad I'm so happy to have all of you here. I would also like to use the opportunity to thank really everybody who helped me in carrying this research. The list is too big. I cannot, unfortunately, name all these names list here. I really like to express my big gratitude to Professor Marina Gržinić, both for today, but also for all encouragement, continuous support during my research. And I have to say that many of my arguments in the book have greatly benefited from her knowledge, from her comments, conversations, criticism that she generously shared with me during all these years. I also benefit from many conversations with other colleagues with whom I had pleasure to work, among others, my friend 𝐓𝐡𝐞 from Ljubljana for extra encouragement, support of Nina Cvar, Saša Madacki, and others. The list is not finished. But however, I also want to thank especially to you, Julian, and Krista, especially. We collaborated a lot online in these pandemic times in the last year on the book, which was specific also. And I really owe special thanks for the publisher, for CEEOL Press, for recognizing the relevance of these subjects and enabling the book to come to the readers today. So thank you all.
It's been a real pleasure to work with you.
Thank you. Yeah. So Marina, thank you. Adla, thank you. Krista, also thank you very much
for the organization.
Yes. Still trying to find ways to reach our audience now on social media, but maybe in future we can make a local gathering. Why not? Let's hope that we will have better days in the future. So this video will be recorded, and still it will stream on YouTube, on Facebook. So if you would like to see it again, you can go on YouTube's on CEEOL YouTube channel to see this video, this conversation. If you need the book, you can go on CEEOL Press, see the book, read about it. If you want to buy it, you can find it also on Amazon. Or if you are an person and you want the ebook, you can go on ceeol.com and purchase from there the book. So again, thank you very much.
Thank you.
and have a great day. Thank you, guests,
thank you so much. Have a great day.
Yeah.
Ciao.
Bye.
Bye.